everyone, welcome to Maeve TR Creations. Today I'm going to be making one of my favorite video game characters, Urbosa from Breath of the Wild. I absolutely love her character design. With the help of my kitty assistants, let's get started. For Urbosa, I'm going to be using this Wonder Woman Barbie doll I got at Value Village a few months ago for about $4. The reason I chose Wonder Woman is because she's been sculpted with muscles that fit a warrior character perfectly. However, I'm going to be using the head from a Hasbro Jasmine doll. I think Jasmine's features are closer to Urbosa's than the Gal Gadot head sculpt, and the proportions of the bigger head will better fit the aesthetic of the original character. The skin tones obviously don't match, but that's an easy fix with my airbrush. I fully removed Jasmine's head and hair, and here I'm removing her face with acetone. Once she's fully cleaned up, I'm going to be using apoxie sculpt to modify her nose, as Urbosa's nose has a larger, hooked shape. Once that's dry, I coated both the head and body in Vallejo primer and painted everything with golden high-flow acrylic paint in burnt sienna, which is a near-perfect match to Urbosa's skin tone. My airbrush was being finicky, so I ended up finishing the job by hand. The paint is starting to chip a bit by the joints, which is unfortunate but inevitable. Once again, I'm using yarn for this reroot. This time, I only rooted around the perimeter of the hairline and along her part. From here, I brushed it out and straightened it. It's the exact same process as in my last video, so I didn't film it. I also styled it here, but I changed it a bit before the end. From here, I moved on to body blushing using dark red on the joints and curves. Her face, I started with 2 layers of MSC and watercolor pencils like I always do, but the pencils were having a lot of trouble drawing on the face for some reason, and I didn't want to press too hard for fear of ripping through the paint. After struggling to get even a faint sketch in, I switched to gouache paint, which made a huge difference. I did use pencils at the very end to add in her pupils and eyelashes. For her top, I resorted to epoxy sculpt after 2 failed attempts at making a removable fabric top. I generally don't like molded on clothing, but for detailed skin-tight things like this, there aren't many other options. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of me sculpting in the details, which is too bad since they were a lot of fun to do. This is why you should always check to see that your camera actually starts recording when you hit the record button. To start, I covered the top with gesso, white for the main parts and black for the trims, which are going to be painted gold. Once that was dry, I started painting in the design with a reference image on my computer off screen. For the gold, I added a layer of gold alcohol ink, which really made it sparkle. I sealed everything in with matte varnish. Using a pattern by Requiem Art Designs, I sewed her a pair of bikini bottoms / underwear for under her skirt. Speaking of the skirt, I modified a pattern from Chellywood Designs and added the details with iron-on transfer paper. Since I don't plan on changing her clothes, I sewed it closed directly to her without adding any snaps. Next, I made her accessories all out of fun foam. Delightful has a great armor tutorial that I'll link below. I assembled everything with hot glue and painted it with gouache and alcohol ink to bring out the metallics. I really love how her arm guards turned out. I ended up sculpting her shoes directly on her too. I tried making a pair out of foam, but those went directly into the trash. In the official art, she wears heels, but I changed it to a pair of wedges to allow her to stand on her own. Once they dried, it was the same method as the top: prime, paint, and seal. I also made the little wing designs out of foam. Finally, let's make her scimitar, once again using foam. I'm using a mini dowel rod that fits in her hand and tracing out the shape of the blade. I assembled the sword using hot glue, once again looking at a reference off screen, and painted it with alcohol inks. I even buffed in some metallic mica powders to really make it shine. I ran into technical difficulties right at the end. The camera filmed an entire 5-minute clip of me painting her sword completely out of focus. I hand painted in some shadows and highlights, which you'll at least be able to see in the final photos. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.